as my wife's already noticed, the title of this week is Are We There Yet? I spend a lot of time saying that to in our prayers, don't we? But I've waited so long. It's taking ages. Are we there yet? I'm bored. So often, like Israel in the wilderness, we get so impatient because in our eyes, things are taking too long. And you know that the clock moves slower for children than it does for adults. And for people who are praying. So what's our response to that? We start grumbling and complaining because we're bored. But what we forget is that any perceived delays are either intentional or necessary or they're our own fault. Usually the scenario is that Yahweh is waiting for us, not the other way around. He's often waiting for us to trust, obey, surrender, catch up, accept, and be willing and able to let go of our security blankets. I see so many people in their security blankets that are filthy and shredded. But they've got to let go of them. It's all I've got. I'm doing it this way for years. How's it working for you? Instead of crying out, how long, we need to ask Abba, what must I do? Stop asking how long and start asking him, what must I do? And then act swiftly to obey his answer. To get from A to B takes time. Usually find that the children are asking, are we there yet? Half an hour into a 6-hour journey. Yeah. They've got no concept that it takes time to get from A to B sometimes. And the further you go, the longer it takes. The more patience and trust that we display, the easier and more pleasant the journey will be. I'm sure there are times when Abba feels like slipping as a sleeping tablet until we get there. Or using a bit of duct tape. If you've asked me for that one more time, I know you need it, I'm going to provide it, but just be patient. We will get there if we follow the plan and persevere, in spite of the occasional discouragements, roadblocks, disappointments, boredom and weariness. Torah says of the gifts that love is both patient and kind. And people think, oh, love's kind. They miss the part where it says love is patient. It's one of the gifts. Don't ask for patience. Never, never, never ask for patience. But you can ask for love. Ask him to increase the love in your life. And if he increases the love in your life, you'll be more patient. I want patience and I want it now. Love is both patient and kind. And it says that we need to pray that you will be continually strengthened with all power that comes from his glorious might, so that you will be able to persevere and be patient in any situation, joyfully. Because the Lord is not slow in keeping his promises, as some people think of slowness. On the contrary, he is patient with you. Puts it back where it belongs. It's not a question of us being patient with him, it's a question of please be patient with us. We're the ones that delay things. We moan and groan when we have time off. And he says, I want you to refresh and take time off and enjoy it. And we say, but we want to do something. And then when he gives us something to do, we turn and say, oh, this is too hard, this is too fast, slow things down. Caleb and Yehoshua were the only two people of their generation to enter in and inherit the promises. Why? Because Yahweh said to them, none of the people aged 20 or more who came out of Egypt will see the land that I swore to Abraham, Yitzhak and Yaakov, because they haven't followed me unreservedly. This is the key word this week, unreservedly. Except for Caleb and Yehoshua, because they have followed Yahweh unreservedly. In spite of our feelings at times, do we secretly yearn for our old lives? When the going gets tough and solutions seem a little thin on the ground. Perseverance is all about trusting and being confident in what we hope for and convinced about the things that we do not see. That's why we thank him in advance for them. Just because we don't see them doesn't mean they're not there. Just means we haven't got them in our little hands yet. And he will do that at just the right time. It's interesting that we've got a couple of $100 that's been in Australia for about 9 years in a little superannuation fund, and every year, whatever interest it gained, they took out a little bit more in fees. So it's actually gone down over those years. It wasn't a lot, and even with the exchange rate. Anyway, we just prayed about it. We really felt to go out and get a gas heater. And the good thing is, because we've already got a gas pot on the barbecue, we can use it on that in the winter and on the barbecue in the summer. And the chimney sweep came yesterday and condemned our fire, our log fire, and said, do not light this fire again. If you do, I won't be responsible. It's totally shot, totally had it. Yahweh knew that when he got us to go out a week or so ago and get the gas fire.
It was a week ago.
Yeah, it was a week ago. We went out and got the gas fire. Yesterday the chimney sweep came, a week and a half late, and condemned the fire and said, do not use it again, it needs replacing.
And said that he was surprised because it's a long, long chimney up to there, black chimney, and it had all come apart, it rusted and come apart, and he said he was surprised that we hadn't got, what was it? He said it was carbon monoxide or something?
Yeah, he was amazed we hadn't been gassed.
Yeah. And he said, you know, it's just amazing that you haven't been gassed by it. He said, and warned us never ever to use it again.
So the people that own the house have got a choice. They've either got to replace that fire because it's 20 years old, or they've got to put a heat pump in, and either way it's going to cost them about $3,500. It's in their hands. But we've got our gas fire, because he said it would take 5 or 6 weeks to order it anyway, which is right in the middle of winter. So Abba's given us a solution.
Gave you a solution before the problem.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, it's interesting, the guy that was going to come, he was going to come over a week ago,
About 2 weeks.
and he didn't make it. Yeah.
So God had stopped us using the fire
Yes.
before we...
But after we got the solution, not the other way around.
Amazing.
So in other words, Caleb and Yehoshua had given him 100% obedience and commitment. They had no personal agendas to fulfill. They had no strings. They had wholeheartedly made his priorities their priorities. No strings. Unconditional. And the question this morning is, are we following unreservedly? Or do we have a little personal agenda and a couple of little strings? I'll do this for you if you... How many times have we prayed that? I'll do this for you if you do this for me. He's not into deal making. He just won't do it. You'll just get complete silence. In the end, he'll turn around and say, don't try and do deals with me. Don't try and manipulate. You either do it my way or not at all. As we've heard a couple of times over the years.
Yes.
I used to love to do deals and say, well, is it this or is it that? Silence. And then eventually turn around and say, don't try and do deals. It might not be either. I had to learn very early on to stop giving him deals. stop trying to manipulate him. He will not be manipulated. At the end of the day, God will do what's best for us. Often we don't know what's best for us, and he does. We think we do. In Washington, America, on August the 28th, 1963, Reverend Martin Luther King had a seemingly impossible vision. People ridiculed him. They wrote him off as a dangerous lunatic, hopelessly naive. And when he addressed a huge gathering of people from all backgrounds and declared, "Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, that even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. And their creed is, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state that's sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. Remember, this was in the early 60s, these saying this. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the colour of the skin, but by the content of their character. And that has always had a huge impact on me. That they will not be judged by the colour of the skin, but by the content of their character. An impossible dream? A fantasy? Naive? 51 years later, regardless of our view of him, an African American lives in the White House. 51 years later. And he lives there with his wife and his daughters and sits down with the sons of former slave owners. That wasn't a message that he was preaching, that was a prophecy. And the prophecy has been fulfilled. Because he was elected on the content of his character and not the colour of his skin. I may have issues with his character, but the process that he went through was based on his character, not on the colour of his skin. But of course, King paid the ultimate price for his dream, as did our own Messiah and many others since. Many people feared and hated him for what he said. Why? Because he was a threat to their power base. He was a threat to their control. He was a threat to their traditional status quo. And that was all based on the fact that they came first. That's the stupid thing about it. It wasn't based on whether they were any good or not. It was simply based on the fact that we were here first. And even that's not true, because the Indians were there first.
Yes.
Many people today don't like our dream. They don't like our vision as a messianic Kehilah. They feel uncomfortable and threatened by it. And the thing they particularly don't like is when it exposes the lies that have been fed down over the centuries. It speaks the truth. But the point is, it's not my dream, it's not our dream, it's Yahweh's dream. The only reason I have a dream is because he's given it to me. And he will 100% definitely turn it into reality. But in his timing, using his methods, and through his chosen, unreserved servants, who will trust him 100% and boldly go. I have a dream. I had a dream for a long time. He gave it to me. I have a dream that's unfolding daily as I take one step at a time and will continue to take them as he directs me. I will not waver or be influenced by the opposition and harsh judgments handed down by the courts of religious and public opinion. I don't care what the other groups out there are saying. I only care what he says. I will not turn. I will not waver. It'd be very easy to be popular and just get back in with the bunch. But it's not the truth. We could have 2,000 people sat here if we tickled their ears and told them what they wanted to hear. But that's not why we're here. I too have been to the mountaintop, and my Abba has shown me a glimpse of the promised land that we will enter into and overcome all difficulties. If we trust and hold firm, we will inherit all that he's shown me regarding the way, his way. And I will continue to lead his people along it as I trust him to supply each and every person and each and every resource that we need to achieve success and enable us to reach our destination. Can I make it happen? No. Right at the moment, week by week, day by day, I often stand there and see the water in front of me and wait for him to open up the next gap and let us walk through on dry land. Unless he makes the way, there is no way. And that happens before every promise. And usually before every promise, temptations come. And I've seen it in many ways. Ministries offered, things offered, jobs offered, money offered, fame offered. All these things usually get offered just before he's about to move and do something new. And one guy that used to come to me and say, we'll finance any ministry you've got anywhere in the country, you choose. And all, it's so funny, because every time I saw him coming, I'd see him with an apple in his hand. He didn't actually have one, but every time I looked at him, all I could see was him with an apple in his hand. And I just felt, I would say, keep as far away from him as possible.
I used to say, throw a dart.
Yeah, throw a dart on the board, throw a dart at the map, anywhere you like.
And we'll pay for the ministry.
Yep.
It wasn't God.
No.
We knew.
In the early days, I didn't want to offend him, I'd say, oh, I'll pray about it. I eventually learned to say no. Am I naive? Am I unrealistic? Some people may see me that way, but no, I'm not. But what I am is confident that Abba's word will create and achieve every dream, every vision, and every word that he's spoken to us. 100% guaranteed. I can't say money back because it's not involved. But I can say 100% guaranteed. He will do everything he says he will do. He'll make a way where there is no way, because all things are possible. But in our case, all things are probable once he's spoken them. Are we there yet? No. Will we get there? Yes. And our future history will record the realization and confirmation of our trust in prophetic guidance. Torah is absolutely packed full of impatient people. As you read through there, so many impatient people that do stupid things. You tell me at 90 I'm going to have a child. Impossible. Fine, I'll get the maidservant pregnant. Let's have an Ishmael. Having had many Ishmaels, please don't do it. It never works out. It's always a compromise. It always crumbles to dust. And it always gets in the way of what he actually wants to do. not too far. We need to go back with this son.
It's pouring out.
Together along his path, we will need to walk hand in hand and heart to heart, encouraging one another. We need to daily encourage one another. Nobody else will. Do not let anybody take your courage away. Don't let anybody discourage you. If they're discouraging you, they're not from Adam. Remember when they were rebuilding the wall? And the Arabs kept coming along and saying, who do you think you are? If a goat trod on that wall, it would fall down. It was just nothing but discouragement, discouragement, discouragement. And as we rebuild the walls, people will come along and constantly discourage us. Oh, but if you do it that way, you'll put people off. Oh, you know, it's too Jewish. It's too this, it's too that, it's too... And they'll constantly try to discourage and chip away at it. We need to encourage each other as we laugh and as we cry. Because there'll be times when we'll laugh together and times when we'll cry together. But we still need to encourage each other in both of those times. And it says, laugh with one another when you need to laugh, but cry with one another when you need to. Why? Because it's healing. We all need to grieve. We all need to rejoice. But there's times for both. But after the grieving, then we need to rejoice again. We need to carry out our assigned tasks, shoulder to shoulder, take on our assigned responsibilities as his shamash, the servants together. When they rebuilt the walls, you had the Levi priesthood standing side by side with the day labourers, next to the perfumers, next to the doctors, next to the whatevers. Nobody turned around and said, I'm not standing next to them, they're not up to my social standing. They had a job to rebuild their part of the wall. And we're to stand shoulder to shoulder, ignoring the differences and celebrating the similarities. There are people out there, and we'll sort of think, what are we doing next to them? And they're probably thinking the same thing about us. But that's not the point. Our job is to rebuild our portion of the wall and to encourage them to do the same. In spite of the differences. Why? Because we've been called and chosen to make this vision a reality. Unreservedly chosen because we've embraced a dream that one day as we move forward step by step, we will enter into and together experience the reality of those dreams and visions. We will rebuild the ancient ruins. We will raise foundations from ages past and be called repairers of broken walls and restorers of streets to live in, as we discover the future by going back to the original foundations. And right from the early days, I've said, basically what we're doing is going back to the future. You have to go back and discover the foundations before you can go forward and build the future. Too many people go back to the foundations and like it so much they say that. Not what he wants. Or they try to go forward without understanding the foundations and fall flat in the face. You have to do both and you have to keep it in balance. Am I naive and idealistic? No. I've been here again. So Torah is full of impatient people who do stupid, reckless things involving compromise. Why? Because they didn't trust him. Why do we do stupid, reckless things? Because we get impatient. And when we get impatient, we do stupid things because we don't trust him to do what he says he's going to do. He's calling out to his body right now. And he's calling out to his faithful remnant. And it says in here, everybody will not come. There will only be a remnant. We are blessed in the fact that we're a remnant, but our job is to make sure that that remnant's as big as possible. And people say, oh, if somebody gets missed out, that's okay. I don't think you'd say that if it was you. Oh, it doesn't matter if you're missed out. Yes, it does. So don't say it about other people that we don't know yet. It doesn't matter if people miss out. Everybody gets in the lifeboat and says, oh, forget about those other people there. Leave them in the water. Let's go for it. No. Our job is to stay there and rescue the rest of the people that are drowning. He's calling his body to rise up and stop dwelling on past events and brooding over times gone by. These are his words, not mine. He says, stop dwelling on past events and brooding over times gone by. I am doing something new. It's springing up. Can't you see it? I am making a road in the desert and rivers in the wasteland. And in response, as we, like the Puritans, move our feet as we pray. Some of you may know it. The Puritans had a saying, when you pray, move your feet. I love it. I think it's a great saying. And as we do that, he says, take up and embrace every piece of non-carnal weaponry that Yahweh provides, so that when the evil day comes, you'll be able to resist. And when the battle is eventually won, you will still be standing. It's a promise. You will still be standing, therefore stand. In other words, don't lose your nerve. Have the belt of truth buckled around your waist. How can you have the belt of truth buckled around your waist if it's not the truth? Am I going to buckle myths and legends around my waist? No. I'm going to buckle the truth around my waist. To put on righteousness for a breastplate, and wear on your feet the readiness that comes from the good news of Shalom. Always carry the shield of trust. If you haven't got trust, you haven't got a shield. And if you haven't got a shield, you're in big trouble. Because the arrows can't bounce off something that's not there. It only says that if you've got the shield up, the fiery darts of the enemy will bounce off them. If you haven't got trust, you haven't got a shield. They're going to get through. With which you'll be able to extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of deliverance or redemption. And again, the helmet of deliverance talks about guarding against the thoughts. All the things that come into your mind. Your mind will always argue with your spirit. But if you've got the helmet of deliverance there, it has authority over the mind. I once heard somebody say, you can't stop birds landing on your head. You can't stop all these temptations and all these things coming. But what you can do is not allow them to nest. It's okay for them to land on your head, but don't let them nest. Along with the sword given by the Spirit. This is a weapon. It talks about the weapons of our warfare aren't carnal. That's because this isn't carnal. This is our weapon. This is our sword. We're not here to defend. We're here to attack. We need to take territory. It says the sword given by the Spirit. That is the word of Yahweh. If the enemy comes, you hit him with the word. That's the sword. Even Yeshua countered him, not with, who do you think you are? Don't you know who I am? He talked to him about he could do this, that, and the other. And he quoted scripture back to him every single time. As you pray at all times, with all kinds of prayers and requests. Isn't that interesting? With all kinds of prayers and requests. They don't all have to be the same. They don't all have to be our Father who art in heaven, whatever that means. We're not Quakers. We're not King James English. It's I keep on trying to emphasize it because you need to get it clear that it's there as a pattern to pray by, not as a prayer to pray. It was always given as a pattern. It said, teach us how to pray. So he gave them guidelines. He gave them a pattern. All kinds of prayers and requests in the Spirit. Not with your mind. Your mind gives you the words, but the Spirit gives you the ability to converse with Yahweh. Vigilantly. What does vigilantly mean? It means you're on sentry duty and you don't fall asleep. You keep awake at all times and you keep your eyes on the ball. You take your eyes off the ball for a second, boom, gone. Vigilantly and persistently. And it says, request to the Spirit, vigilantly and persistently for what? All of Yahweh's chosen, his servants. We're to pray for one another. We're to encourage one another. We're family, related by blood, his blood. What was that thing you used to say in the 60s? Brother with a different mother.
Brother from a different mother.
Brother from a different mother. Yeah. So, what are we going to do with what we've heard? We're going to file it. When are we going to respond to it? Who are we going to share it with? And how are we going to do it? And where are we going to do it? These are the questions we need to ask ourselves today. Otherwise, it's just another meeting and just another message to file away and forget about. Until next week. We need to ask ourselves, what are we going to do with what we've heard from him? When are we going to respond to that word? His favourite's usually today. Just to give you a clue. Who are we going to share it with? If we keep it to ourselves, what's the point? He gives us things to share, not to keep to ourselves. It's not private. Remember in the army, don't discuss religion. That was very wise. I hate discussing religion. I won't discuss religion, but I'll discuss this. We need to ask ourselves, then how am I going to do it? How am I going to respond? It's easy to say, do this, this, that, and the other. It's a lot different turning around and saying, yeah, but how am I going to put this into practice? There's often a big gap between what we want to do and how we're going to do it. And where are we going to do it? The mission field starts the minute you walk through the door. So shalom, atem mi hitmid, you who persevere. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.